Hello, my name's Kevin. I'm the Atypical Cripple,
And
and I am with.
I got excited. My name's Bizarro Czar.
And why are you so excited?
Well, I just cut you off trying to introduce myself. Messed with the whole flow of the video.
Hey, dude, whose name is it on the channel?
Yours.
Was that a rude thing to do?
I don't know. Yeah, very rude. I'm offended. I demand an apology.
None given.
Oh well.
All right. So, my esteemed colleague here got into a not Twitter, Facebook kerfuffle. Would you like to fill us in on
Oh
this?
yeah, I said something on Facebook about Ukraine and how I'm not strongly supportive of one side or the other. What I said was I'm neutral, but then I also qualified that with a couple other things.
Hmm.
And somebody's like, "How can you be neutral? There's clearly a bad guy in this."
Is there?
And so I think I have a nuanced view on it. I think
All right.
Putin is wrong to have invaded another country, but I also don't think we should get involved at all. Um,
No
we should not.
weapons.
We should. Well, I don't know. We shouldn't be risking World War III over a territorial dispute halfway around the world.
Do you know anything about the Vietnam War?
A little.
So we got involved over there in a time that seemed distant. I mean, back in the 60s, I doubt anyone could put Vietnam on a global map.
Yeah.
But yet we're over there. And did you know that the Russians were in El Salvador and Nicaragua? And you ever hear of the Monroe Doctrine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that basically don't let communism spread?
No.
Or okay, that's
The
something else.
Monroe Doctrine was signed in 1803. A
Oh,
little
never mind. I'm thinking of something totally different.
predates the predates communism, but it basically says any foreign power of Europe is not allowed to operate freely in the Western Hemisphere.
Right.
So we have the right to go to war. Now,
Who gave us that right?
I believe this President Monroe.
So we gave it to ourselves, in other words.
Right. So, in power politics, politics of big powers, how do we fit into that?
uh, well, in history, we've been a pretty big. Like, are we talking before World War II, after
Well,
World War II?
I assume here in your Facebook post that you're going for a um, I'm not with either side. I'm
You want me to read
oh
your
yeah,
response?
if you think that would be helpful, go
Sure.
for it.
Sure, I'll read it. All right. I'm just going to start
The beginning.
from here.
Just start with the post.
Oh, the original? All right.
No, all
No?
the way down.
Well,
Your diatribe.
okay, fine. I'm
This.
replying to a reply on my original post, and I said this. My phrasing was a bit ambiguous. I'm on the side of peace, on the side of those that want peace, Ukrainians and Russians. Ukraine has every right to defend itself, but we are playing with a fire that can burn us all. We are possibly at the cusp of World War III, and corrupt, incompetent, evil people are running the show. I don't think any regional dispute is worth billions of people's lives. I also don't think America has a strong footing from which to criticize Putin for killing women and children since we have done it so much ourselves abortion, drone strikes, past wars, etc. It is evil, but I've not seen repentance of our national sins that would give us moral footing to stand on. I also distrust much of the war propaganda and framing of events coming from the mainstream media and politicians. They have shown themselves untrustworthy over and over. Why should I start trusting them now? They have gotten us into unnecessary, unjust wars too often. They are guilty of ending millions of lives by their lies. That, uh, that is more monstrous to me than Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Defense of your home is good and right, but defense of a person's home on the other side of the world from their neighbor that would very likely lead to the destruction of your own home is very morally dubious at best.
Hmm. So what's the kill count right now on abortion since Roe v. Wade?
In America, I believe it's over 60 million.
Okay.
It's probably closer to 70 million by this point.
How many people have died in Ukraine yet?
Uh,
Let's give you both sides because you know the
from abortion?
no
Because quite a few have died from
no
abortion there as well.
no doubt, no doubt. But what I'm trying to say is in your post, um, you're you know he's you know your the um, guy you're talking to wanted to say here's a bad guy, here's a good guy. Go after the bad guy, right?
Right.
And what you're trying to say is that I think there's stuff on both sides they can go to war with or have common disagreements or not have a right to go to war over.
Yeah, I'm just more
I
concerned.
mean, what's the war over? Is it LGBT rights? Or is the war more about past grievances that we in the United States have no idea what we're talking about?
Well, as far as from Putin's perspective, he's, talks about these territories that he wants to,
Donbass and
yeah, and
Luhansk.
he believes that the fall of the Soviet Union was like the worst thing that happened in the last century. So
Well, right, right.
um,
But
he would
from
be for, and it, there's a lot about Russia's geography that
right,
they feel threatened by European nations and alliances, and
well,
they have all these
they
justifications for why
they
they want to take that territory.
well they have been invaded by Europeans twice in the last 2 centuries.
Yeah,
That does leave a bit of a mark.
yeah,
And if the Arabs were all upset over European involvement in the Middle East, they cite a treaty called Sykes-Picot, which was established after World War One, and they, took out our trade towers,
hmm
trade center towers over that. So I mean, here's the thing:
blowback.
how do you interact with Putin knowing that there's something going on over there? Our leaders are not addressing the issue to the satisfaction of the Russians. Um, what do you think's going on? Because what I see is on the Ukrainian side, I'm seeing Black Sun logos and Nazi regalia. And on the other side, I see hammer and sickle.
Yeah,
So, I mean, if they both want to kill one another, I say, welcome to it. Uh, please give me your give me your Bitcoin account so I can send you some cool toys to try? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This conflict, it Zelensky has been cozying up with the West.
Sure.
Um, he's done a lot to try to make himself more European, make Ukraine more European and more
Well,
friendly to the
what
European Union.
what kind of European though? I mean, there's a specific kind of European over there in the Central European plain area that maybe a lot of them moved out there in 1850. And when they went out there again in the 1940s, it's like brothers, and they started SS battalions. And not only that, I mean, um, there's some hinky stuff going on. And as far as I'm concerned, if you got communists fighting Nazis, I say God bless you.
Well,
Go after.
I think there are some Nazi type people in the Ukrainian, you know, war effort, but
Right.
I don't think it's a predominant faction.
Now the question I have is, when do the trainee brigades start coming out?
Yeah, well, the only trannies that I've noticed have been trying to get out of Ukraine, not
I
go to the front
know.
line. That's strange.
We need those green beret trannies in the camouflage high heels and fishnet stockings and
It's a trap.
maybe.
General Akbar.
Well, it depends on whether the other guy's aware of it.
Yes.
Anyway. All right. Well, it is a serious topic. Do you have
Yeah.
anything else to say about it?
Um. Yeah, but not off the top of my head.
All right. Well, you know, Nazis and communists want to fight one another. Who am I to get in the way?
Yeah, I mean that's really what it boils down to is not
Do we have
to me it's less about the Nazi communist issue. It's more just the fact that this conflict on pretty much every level has nothing to do with us.
Well, right.
And we're risking a horrific conflict by becoming more and more involved.
Are we? Because I look at Vietnam and I look at how, you know,
What if we were to try to
you can
enforce
make
a no-fly zone?
what?
They've been pushing to, Zelensky has been
Agreed.
pushing for us to enforce a no-fly zone.
But
That's
right,
a
right.
really
And
bad idea
Well, why is that bad? idea?
because that involves NATO forces shooting down Russian forces, which
Well,
that sounds a lot
right.
like the beginning of World War III.
Well, here's the thing. Will NATO do that? Because Russia is also talking about attacking Estonia, which is a NATO country.
That's the other problem because there's these
But I
close
think
close to the border, these people coming in through Poland and other things.
I think I think what we need to look at is, why is Russia taking their sweet time going across the border? I think they're trying to do a new way of doing warfare, which, in the Russian point of view, oh gee, we can't use artillery. Okay, we'll just run tanks up to them.
Right. I mean, Russia
And we'll
has
try to keep the civilian deaths down, but you're still killing civilians. And so what I'm trying to say is we got a mess. But
yeah.
but neither side wants nuclear weapon exchanges. And as long as we keep that to a dull roar, because here's the thing, who wins with the strategic deploying nuclear weapons, what's the win scenario there?
I don't see one.
It only works if Russia gets invaded. And that's
Sure.
and that's what I think they're afraid of. Because when you look at Russia, traditionally they've been Kievan Rus. Russia has a a mythos of 1,000 years,
Hmm.
and the borders have shifted. And the Russian people are not any more moral or good or anyone else.
Right.
They just don't, they're more traditional. But even in that sense, they're not. Because they got high abortion rates,
Right.
high rates of addiction. You get into Alaska, not Alaska, Siberia, you got these people using this drug called crocodile.
Right.
I mean, that still makes their flesh right off your bones.
Right.
Nasty. So I don't see anyone having, not the US, not Russia, not China, nobody has any moral footing. What
Right.
we have here is power. And we have the West getting stuck in this victim politics. If they can cry victim and be victim, but on the other hand, you got all these masculine types supporting this. Because I bet you got all sorts of SF all over Ukraine. It's only a matter of time before they start bringing back training, fatalities from Ukraine. So we're already at a point where we're like killing one another. But as long as it's on the DL,
Right.
as long as we are killing Wagner. You've heard of the Wagner Group?
Is that their version of BlackRock?
Blackwater.
Blackwater?
BlackRock owns ABC. They're but Blackwater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started by a Russian Nazi, I guess.
Hmm.
And because it's Wagner.
Right. Yeah. But
And,
even like
yeah, so
assuming, I mean, okay, worst case scenario would be a nuclear type exchange, and that would lead to probably billions of deaths.
no.
I think. Like if there was an actual like nuclear exchange,
Well, let's say they hit
because you're not it's
Fort
not
Lewis.
just direct deaths. It's also the blowback,
Well,
the destruction of infrastructure. Just there's a lot of just like with the pandemic, there was a lot of non like people died
right.
from other things like you know because of uh,
Excuse me.
supply chains disrupted, the third
Oh,
world
no doubt.
suffers. So it's not just okay this many casualties from a nuclear blast in a city or something. There's also all
What's
these
that a
down
picture of up there?
uh, the one on the far left.
No, just the whole poster.
Oh, your the nuclear event.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you know the history of that? That was my attempt at analysis of a 15 kiloton explosion that I set up this scenario where North Korea um, put a crude nuclear weapon in a shipping container and then did the shuffle the shipping container through countries and brought it in, nuked it. And so I am. Now, what's funny is people look at me, oh my God, that's horrible, oh my God. And you're like, yeah, but it can happen. The same people that were belly aching over me 10 years ago about this are the ones now going, oh my gosh. If London gets nuked, we can take it. And here's the thing about nuclear weapons that nobody knows about. Number one, they're not as destructive as everyone thinks. But on the other hand, they are nasty, and they have they have effects that are long term.
Right.
Maybe not as long term as we thought, but people did die of cancer in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Um, it's not a good way to go.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you know, it's not the end of the world. So a limited nuclear strike, as long as you're outside
If it stays limited,
right.
but that's a big if.
Well, and then you got the anti-ballistic missiles and stuff like that. What I'm trying to say is, I see both the United States and Russia taking steps towards this, and you know, you see it with the Cuban Missile Crisis, and you see it here. And all I'm trying to say is, I don't like the idea of projecting weakness.
Right.
I never did.
Well, and another factor of this whole thing is
You know.
there was a survey that asked people something along the lines of whether they thought Russia would have invaded Ukraine had Trump been in office, and the majority of people said no, they don't think he would
Well,
have.
I think there are ways that we can, you know, we don't know what's going on in the high seas. We don't know what's going on around Ukraine. But I do know this. I was watching S2 Underground
Hmm.
today, and he pointed out a EC-130 was tasked to gather info on the truckers convoy. Um, so we are tasking military assets because they are the real threat to their power is the American people. And the real enemy to our American lifestyle is our own people. And the question is, are we going to leave it up to Putin to figure it out? Or are we going to figure out our own stuff? And that concerns me because I don't see many people willing to look at the problem as it is.
Are you saying that this whole invasion has been a psyop by the globalists to distract us from them?
No, but I could say this.
Never let a crisis go to waste?
Putin may have. I think of it this way. Putin's been trying to keep NATO from expanding eastward for over a decade.
Hmm. Longer than that. Well, I mean, there were promises made that NATO would not move eastward.
I don't know if there were promises made or not. There was certainly never nothing written down and codified like other treaties.
I'll have to look it up because I remember there was this quote
It
that
was
I
a
keep hearing.
Budapest Accord.
Oh, okay.
It was a tacit agreement that if Ukraine gave the nuclear weapons back to Mother Russia, the United States would guarantee for a time being that Russia would not invade. But it was like, you know, hey, if we give up our nuclear weapons, you know, that sort of thing. So the nuclear weapons were given up a long time ago. They had not invaded until now, and even still, see, it's all verbal.
Right.
Are you gonna put it up?
Not with all this other stuff up.
Close, close it out.
U.S. Secretary of State James Baker's famous.
If you're
Not
gonna
one
read, if
inch
you're gonna
eastward.
read it, you might as well show it on Steam.
Okay, fine. Here, I'll do it this way. Nope, that's not how I want it. There we go. No, I don't want to join.
I
your
mean,
reading
we
list.
are doing a show and all.
We are? Oh,
And it's
jeez.
like, oh, let's do a show. Oh my god. What are you gonna get all butthurt on me now? Kevin yelling at me. God, you wouldn't believe how many times I got that in my childhood. All right, what are we looking at here?
The Washington. Okay, I
Oh
was
wow,
thinking of
this
this quote that I remember hearing, not 1 inch eastward. So I looked it
not
up.
one
U.S.
inch.
Secretary of State James Baker's famous not 1 inch eastward assurance that NATO
You
expansion
could,
in his meeting with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev
yeah, that's the thing.
in 1990.
Yeah, well, I was alive at that time, and there's no way that guy could have said that. He said it, but it's like
It's like if I
he,
promised you $1 million.
there's only like 5 years that you can actually guarantee that. And if the Russians are giving, if the Ukrainians are giving up the nuclear weapons,
Which they
and
didn't have the launch codes for anyway.
that's true because it was all under Soviet control.
Right.
But on the other hand, they could have given it over to Pakistan or to Iran
Right.
or worse, Saddam or Gaddafi. So only
Fair enough.
the world is a horrible, horrible place when you consider how many different ways you can get killed. Did you ever hear about the two Dutch girls that got raped and killed in Morocco? Or about the
Mm,
American couple
when was that?
3 years ago?
Maybe.
They wanted to go down there, oh, peace and love. And it's like, so you girls are alone, huh?
Great.
It's like, all you gotta do is single female traveling alone.
It's
And you
interesting.
see all the different ways people.
This comes from a lack of
Yeah.
understanding of like original sin, like this concept that people are basically good.
Well, right. But if you really, for the most part, they are. Until you get to the 20% that aren't.
Uh,
All I'm trying
yeah,
to.
okay, to a certain extent,
I'm
but
looking
at the
at
same
from.
time, a lot of people, if they had no
Alright,
outside influences,
if you go to Afghanistan and you're just hanging out with people drinking coffee, that's cool, right? But then you go down the road and they're having a bakabazi dance.
oh,
And then all of a sudden the tenor changes.
yeah,
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what being outside the United States is like. Because when I went to Bali, Indonesia, my professor was like, I was wondering if I should tell you guys about this, but there was a Japanese gang that came through here, and the local guys got together, killed them, and fed them to the fish. They were bad for business. And the cops, they were like, cool. You not only captured them, but you took care of it. Awesome. Gold star, guys. We don't want that kind of thing in America. We we want institutions. We want this sort of stuff. On
well,
the other hand, I can live within the old boy system too. I know how that works.
well, yeah. My point was,
Yes.
I think that people mostly behave
Yeah.
because there are consequences if you behave in a way that's outside of what's acceptable.
Well,
But if you're free of consequence,
yeah.
I think a lot of people have a false notion that, well, people, if they would basically just do the right thing, and I think that
I
people will act according to their desires, and a
mm,
lot of times desires aren't going to lead you in a good direction.
Well, I think a lot of the Westerners, they live within Christian standards, and then they question those standards by going elsewhere, saying, "Oh, I don't need to be in a place. Everyone knows it's good not to murder until you're murdered
Yeah.
for being an outsider." Or like
If
one girl that I heard of, um, she went through Vietnam in the 1980s, and I heard somebody talk about her. And she was only raped 3 times.
only 3,
Well, right. It's like, well, if you just cooperate, they don't give you a black eye.
if you cooperate, then it's not even rape, right?
Well, it is, but I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. So I mean, there are lots of different ways to get. You know, it's like what one friend told me. My my son could get a job if he only took the shot. Well, what's the difference? It's only rape or a shot,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, there's
I
some
mean,
difference, but it's the idea of whether or not you have autonomy over your own body,
right. And so, you know,
which is that false idea that abortion is somehow, oh, it's my bodily autonomy. Well, what about the baby's bodily autonomy?
well, we don't think of it that.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I think we've gone long enough.
All right.
My name's Kevin on the Cripple.
And I'm Bazarzar.
See you on the next bounce.